Hi, this is Kai Marie, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 2. My special guest today is Yolanda Bartow. She's the owner of A Place for Peace. Today's topic is Reiki for trauma healing. Hello and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast, a weekly discussion giving you the tools to understand and heal from intergenerational trauma. I am your host, Kai Marie. To find out more information about the topics discussed today, visit kaimarie.com. Hi, this is Kai Marie, and welcome to Season 2 of the Healing Element Podcast. I'm so happy to have you join me today. I have a very special guest with me, Yolanda Bartow. Hopefully I said your last name correctly.
You did.
Okay, good. I'm a stickler for pronouncing names correctly. So I'm so happy to have her here with me today. We're going to be talking about Reiki for trauma healing. So our summary topic is learn how Reiki is a healing modality that can help you begin your healing journey. So the one thing that kind of brought me to Yolanda was, number one, it was her Instagram page. That's where I first saw the work that she does. And when I saw not only a therapist, but yoga, and then when I saw Reiki, I was like, mind blown. I want to know more about how she uses this to work with their clients, because I have heard of Reiki, but I've never seen it kind of how you have framed it in that type of setting. So I was super interested to learn more, which is why I'm so happy that you were joining us today. So with that being said, Yolanda, welcome. And could you please tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this conversation. So I am Yolanda Bartow, as you said, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, yoga instructor, and Reiki practitioner. My journey to this space has been one where I have worked with people all of my life. So as a teenager and in college doing childcare, actually went into childcare early on. I taught special education for a while, but therapy has always been the thing that I've wanted to do. And I can say that everything that I have done has led me to this journey, including bringing in yoga, including bringing in Reiki to my practice, because those are things that I tried for myself first and then found the benefits and saw how that would be beneficial also to my clients.
Beautiful. And so to get started in this conversation, which I'm going to try to calm myself down because I'm like, yeah, I'm so excited to talk about and learn more about Reiki because I don't know a lot about it. So for anyone who's listening who's like me, can you kind of explain exactly what is Reiki? I'm sure a lot of people have kind of drawn their own conclusions, which are probably incorrect. So can you help define it, please?
Yes, so Reiki is a form of energy healing. So there are multiple types of energy healing. Reiki is one of those. And even within the Reiki system, there are over 200 different types of Reiki. Essentially what it is universal life energy. So Reiki uses a technique called palm healing. So that means that energy comes from the palms, right? It's channeled through the palms to the client in an effort to promote our own natural healing process. So not me giving you my energy, it's the life energy that all of us inhabit. And what it does is it allows your body to go through its own natural healing process. So whatever is not serving you well can come to the surface and be released.
Wow. So with Reiki, it still is, what you're doing is kind of helping that person find their own healing within their body. It's not as though some other energy source, it's literally that person's energy body is producing the energy to help bring healing.
Correct.
That's amazing. Because I've heard so many different stories from people about Reiki, about, where this energy kind of comes from. And that's why some people that I've spoken to, that they said they stayed away from it just because they weren't clear as to exactly what is this energy. And I think sometimes even when we talk about energy, some people get a little nervous about that and not realizing that we are energy, though. That's exactly what we are.
Everything is energy. So again, it's just your own body's natural process. The body heals itself. You know, we shed our skin, new layers come up. If we take care of ourselves, our body does everything that it needs to do to heal itself. And so this is just a form of healing that promotes that natural healing process.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about what you're saying is it shows how our body is always trying to get back to balance.
For sure.
Like, it wants to do that, and this is a modality that can help usher that in, which is beautiful.
Yes, on so many different levels, which we'll get to.
Right, and so to become a Reiki practitioner, how does one do that?
So there are different levels to becoming a Reiki practitioner. Level 1 is really utilized for people to do self-healing, because if you want to heal, we do have to start with self first, right? And so you go into Reiki, you find a Reiki master who teaches and helps you become attuned. So they're called attunements. And basically it's just a connection to you and the energy. You become connected to the energy, and then you utilize that for healing. So the first level is healing of self. The second level, you begin to help others through healing. And then the third level is master level. And master level allows you to teach other people how to do it. So those are the 3 different levels. You can go to the International Center for Reiki Training and the International Reiki Association and find a list of Reiki masters who in your area to become a Reiki practitioner.
Okay, wow. And so for people that they've done the healing work themselves, and so now they're in a position where they can now help others find their healing. So how would one begin to connect with a client to help them begin their healing journey?
So there's 2 different ways of doing that. Some people who are Reiki level 2 practitioners begin to develop their own business. And so even within the Reiki training of becoming a practitioner, you learn how to start up your own business. And so if you become a part of those 2 organizations that I just told you about as well, it helps you to develop that business. I started with healing my family. So that's where my practice came in: family, friends, and then incorporating it into my therapy business. So all of that is a part of the Reiki training.
Wow. Okay. So again, that self-healing, which is so important, because then you can kind of speak to someone who you're working with to say, I am an example of this type of modality, and I know it works because this is how it's benefited me in my life.
Yes.
And so for someone, and this is the part that I found interesting, is we were talking before about how this healing can be a part of one's healing from trauma. And their journey from healing from trauma. So could you speak a little bit to that, how Reiki can help someone who's a trauma survivor?
Yes, so Reiki really helps to release anything that is not serving you. So when we think about people who have experienced trauma, oftentimes 1 or 2 things or both happen. 1, there are emotional blocks, because we don't want to think about the situation that has occurred. And so there's a lot of suppression. So oftentimes when I'm working with people in a therapy setting, they may not even identify that a trauma has occurred. So the Reiki actually helps to get through the emotional blocks. It helps to bring everything to the surface so that we can process it, and so we can do the work to release it. Because the reality is every experience that we have becomes a part of our DNA. And so when that experience is something that's unpleasant, that DNA connection becomes disease. And so Reiki helps to heal that.
Interesting, because that makes me think of, and I've seen this happen in the yoga space where someone has like a back injury or maybe knee pain or something like that. And so they're going to get treatment for that type of physical pain, but it's actually an emotional or a trauma that they experience, but it's being displayed in the body as some type of physical pain.
Yes. So there is scientific evidence that trapped emotions lead to disease. And we can tell what kind of emotion is associated with by where it's attached to in your body, where it shows up in your body. So when you think about people that say, my shoulders feel heavy, or I feel like I'm carrying the burdens of the world on my shoulders, that's because responsibility is held here.
Wow.
And so when you think about something being resolved and the person says, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, like we're not saying those things actually have meaning. When we have a sore throat, it's the suppression of, I have something to say, but either I don't feel safe saying it, or I don't have the words to express it. So all of those things are a part. And so when we're doing Reiki, we're actually channeling in those chakra centers to help release and block the blockages that are there.
Beautiful. And so that whole conversation, when you're talking about Reiki, you're obviously talking about the chakra system and how that impacts our body and our ability to heal.
So for some clients, I try to use more plain language because everybody
understood.
Sometimes, when you get too far into talking about chakras and things like that, people are like, wait, what are you talking about?
Right,
so I try to keep it very simple and plain so that people can connect to what I'm saying.
Right. And so the other thing that I really appreciate what you said, and also what we're starting to see more of, is the scientific evidence that shows what you're doing. Like, this is actually healing that occurs, and we're not just this physical body. Like, there's actually the scientific that backs that, the power of energy healing. Because a lot of times I have found myself in spaces where people are like, a lot of like, yoga and that stuff is like woo woo, but it's not. It actually, so not only have you felt the benefits of it and the people that you have helped, but also now you have that science and that the data that shows like, no, there's medical evidence that shows that this is actually, not only does it work, but also the power that our body has to heal itself. Especially someone can connect with someone as yourself.
For sure. Even to the point that Reiki is used in hospitals. So it's used with people who are undergoing chemotherapy, because what it does in that space is it helps the medicine to absorb easier into the body. It's also used for people who are recovering from surgery, again, because it not speeds up, but it helps the healing process. So when we're talking about Reiki, it helps on all levels, physical, spiritual, and mental. And there are benefits in all of those spaces with Reiki.
And so when you're looking at healing, we've talked about it from if someone that is a trauma survivor and this is helpful on their journey, but also for people that maybe have inherited trauma as well, how Reiki can benefit them. Can you talk a little bit about how that would be helpful for someone who is beginning their healing journey from trauma that's inherited?
Yes, so the thing about Reiki is it transcends space and time. And so that occurs in two ways. I can give you Reiki from this space right here. We're not in the same room, we're not in the same city, but you can still have the benefits of Reiki. So with that understanding, it can go backwards as well in time. And so it can be something that I have experienced myself in the past, but it can also be something that I have inherited through whatever lineage I'm coming from. So when we think about Black people specifically, when we're thinking about the effects of slavery, it helps to heal those traumas that are associated with that experience that we continue to carry.
Right. And I think, that's so important, like talking about that historical trauma piece is so critical, because so many times we just kind of see the outcomes, And that's again kind of looking at like the physical manifestation of something, but actually the root of it is trauma, and that's something that Reiki can kind of speak to and allow the body to start to heal on like an individual level, but also like the body of people who have experienced trauma.
Correct. You're absolutely right with all of that.
Wow. And so say if you have a client and they're coming to you and they're wanting to say, hey, I heard about this Reiki thing. What is it that they should know kind of walking into a session? Is there anything kind of like words of wisdom that you give them to prepare them?
So when I have a client, I always start with a consultation. And that consultation gives me a view of what they want to happen or what benefit they seek to have from having a Reiki session. So I explain to them what their experience may look like, and that experience can be anything from falling asleep. I have a lot of clients that sleep during their Reiki session. You may feel sensations in your body, such as vibration or heat, to having visualizations. Sometimes people experience like a movie playing out, visualizing different colors, or experiencing a very healing, bright light. So those are all things that people experience. The other thing that I do is I also tell them how to care for themselves after the session. One of my biggest things is for people to be gentle with themselves. And so after a Reiki session, some people may experience detox symptoms. And those detox symptoms can look like increased emotional release, whatever that is. Doesn't necessarily mean crying, it can mean laughter. It's whatever that person needs to release. It can also mean increased trips to the restroom, because again, whatever is not serving you well needs to be released, and it's going to come out in more than one way. So I tell people what to expect and how to care for themselves. What I will say for people who are going to seek any type of healing is for them to do research. Always do research and find someone that you connect to. Call more than one person. Do consultations over the phone, and also listen to how you feel in your body when you're having these conversations. If it doesn't feel right, then that's not the person for you. And that's just during that initial consultation, because healing is not pretty. And sometimes it is going to be uncomfortable, but you have to be in an uncomfortable space with someone that you trust. So that is the thing.
Right. That's so true. And similar to when you were saying, if someone is looking to be a Reiki practitioner and where you can go to begin that whole educational piece, you want to connect with that master teacher, the one that kind of resonates with you, and your energies kind of meet. Just like what you're saying here, if you're a person who's looking for that service, you want to make sure that you're connecting with the practitioner, that you have that their energy, you guys kind of vibe, if you will, and say, okay, I can definitely be comfortable with this person. Because healing is very vulnerable. And you want to make sure that you are in an environment and with someone that you feel comfortable beginning to open up to.
Because, well, one of the things I always say is there is no change in comfort. And if you're seeking change, we have to get uncomfortable. But again, that has to be a trusted, safe space, because if you're not comfortable enough to really bring to the forefront the things that you need to in order to heal, I'm not going to say you're wasting your time, but you're increasing the amount of time that you will need for healing, because you're unwilling or unable or don't feel safe enough to do it in the space that you are in that moment.
Right. And I think the one thing that I really appreciate that you do is that you bring different types of healing together. And because I've spoken to some people that they tried yoga. So they're practicing yoga and they've gone through something traumatic, and the yoga through their practice that allowed them to then reach out to a therapist and say, okay, now I feel comfortable having the conversation. And then I've had people that, you know, first they've had a few sessions with their therapist, and that kind of led them to maybe go into art therapy, look at art therapy or writing. So I love how you bring it together to say healing doesn't come in one way. You have to find kind of what works for you.
Yes. And so my main reason for incorporating all of those things is to really bring together the mind, body, spirit connection. And so if I'm just sitting talking to you, we're connecting on the mental, but we're not really doing anything, like I said, to release those unpleasant emotions that are trapped within our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So by being able to incorporate the yoga includes movement, mindfulness, breathing, meditation. We can bring all those things in. And in addition to that, the energy healing along with the psychotherapy. It allows a person to have a place where we can really get to the root of things and move through the healing process. We're not one-dimensional people. And
Right.
we really need to have like a holistic approach to our healing. So that includes, if my client, I need to know, what doctors are you seeing? What are your your pediatrician, not pediatrician, your physician, your psychologist, if you are on any type of psychiatric medications? Are you seeing a chiropractor? Because a lot of times when people bring me that information, I'm like, oh, it gives me additional information to help on this side as well. And I can have them tell them things that they can share with those other doctors that will help on that side.
Right. I think you raised such a good point, because in Western medicine, and I think now it's slowly beginning to change, but it's been really one-sided about treatment. And it hasn't really been looking at us as a whole being. It's like, oh, your knee hurts, take this medication for your knee, or you're going to need surgery. Like, it hasn't been, okay, like, is stress causing this? What is this person eating? Like, is something that they're eating, is it causing certain parts of their body to become inflamed? Like, you're just kind of looking at just the knee. How do we address the knee? But we are all connected, as you said, and that's part of that holistic healing, is taking care of the whole body, not just that area that's in pain. It's just, okay, let's get to the root cause of why that's happening.
Yes. So we pay attention to our bodies. Our bodies tell us everything that we need to know. Anything that I take in, my body is going to have a response to it. Whether it's something that I'm watching with my eyes, hearing with my ears, tasting, smelling, feeling. And oftentimes what we do, though, is in those spaces, or when we're engaged in those activities, we ignore the signs because what we're doing is pleasurable. We think about when you eat that food you're not supposed to have. It tastes so good. And I don't mind the heartburn that comes afterwards. So it's really about being connected first internally, but then also connecting all of the dots outside of ourselves as well with our care.
Right. I know. When you said that, I thought of dairy. I'm working on it. I know dairy doesn't like me, but I love dairy. And I know afterwards I feel congested and I'm coughing, and so I know I shouldn't be doing it. So when you spoke to me, you hit a nerve with that one. That was,
myself too.
Oh my gosh. I found a replacement for the cheese, but sometimes I struggle with the milkshake. I tried the almond milk, but sometimes this internal battle starts, and it's like, just try a little bit of the dairy. And I'm like, okay.
So I'll have to ask you about, because cheese is the thing. I just had a conversation earlier today. It's like, I'm off dairy except cheese. And I just have not found something that, I was like, maybe I just have to give up cheese completely and not even try to find a substitute.
Yeah, I have a substitute for you. I think it's called Daya. I'll definitely send it to you. And that's what I've been using, and it's been great. I have not had cheese since. I've only been using that. And the only thing is, I have to be careful because it is high in sodium.
Okay.
Yeah. So that I just have to be careful with, but Yeah, I've been having my little tortilla and cheese and but yeah. So when you said that about what we're eating, like all of that stuff is connected. Our body is always sending us signals, sending us messages as to that there's a problem, there's something going on. And so the work that you're doing is really also telling us to kind of listen to it and say, okay, like begin to listen to your body so you can come back to balance.
Yes. And the other thing I'll say about that too is that there are so many experiences that we have, especially within the Black community, that are considered normal, right?
Yeah.
And because it's our experience, because it's oftentimes things that we can't do anything to change in the moment, we don't view it as an issue all the time. But it really does impact our health, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. So we really have to be paying attention to those things and getting assistance to heal through them.
Right. That's so true, because if you, which is like our community, so many things that we've experienced, it is trauma, but because everybody's experiencing it, we think that it's normal. Right. And it's not. And so, so this type of work is so important. And also knowing that this work is for us. That was the other big draw for me when I saw the work that you're doing, is for our community to know that this type of service is for you. You're deserving of this type of work than anybody else. So that's another thing. I'm so happy with what you're doing.
Yes. Those are my people, and that's who I want to help.
I love it. I love it. And so I guess as we start, we could go on and on. I'm so fascinated by this. But as we start to wrap up, are there any, I think you did kind of speak to this, but any tips or anything that people should kind of be aware of? Let's say they have a session that they're going to be going to. Any tips or anything that you wanted to give to them?
Yes, like be transparent about your reservations, like ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And when you get answers, if other questions come up, ask those too. Your health and your healing is your journey, and you should be in charge of it. It shouldn't be what someone else thinks it should look like. You have a say in that, and we should really be using our voice in all healing spaces.
Right, I love that. And so I think that's a great ending to a wonderful conversation today about healing, and just really understanding that this is for everybody, for the Black community. This healing is for you, and we hold space for you. So please definitely take advantage of this conversation. And so Yolanda, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about your services, how can they find you? So
I'm on all social media platforms as A Place for Peace. And my website is aplaceforpeace.net. They can contact me either through direct messaging, or if you go to my website, there's ways to contact me that way as well.
Okay, beautiful. And thank you so much. I'll be sure to put all your information in the description box for this episode. And also, so that includes your email and all that stuff that people have, so they'll be able to reach out to you. So thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for our listeners. Be sure to download today's episode and also subscribe to the Healing Element podcast. If you would like to learn more about me and the services that I offer, please visit me at kaimarie.com. With that being said, y'all have a wonderful day, and talk to you soon.